Hi everyone, and welcome to today's video. And today we're going to be talking about aerodynamics. But just before we get started, I'd like to thank our sponsors at Promo Science and Actua for making all of this possible. And so let's begin. So aerodynamics is a type of fluid dynamics. So when we talk about aerodynamics, we're talking about how things move through the air. So air is a fluid just like water. For water, we call it hydrodynamics. Water is much more dense than air and harder to move through, but it's more buoyant, so more things will float than they will in air. And air is very not dense at all, 0.15 grams per cm per centimeter cubed. Compared to water, which is 1 gram per centimeter cubed. So it's easier to move through, but it's much less buoyant. So in my hands right now, I have something called rheoscopic fluid. So rheoscopic fluid is just water with mica powder dissolved. You might have heard of mica powder. It's in a lot of cosmetics like makeups. So one really cool thing about this is that you can see here, you can see the motion of the water and the currents. So rheoscopic fluid can be used to show the dynamics of water. Really cool. But we're not going to be talking about water. We're going to be talking about air. So let's continue. So there are 4 forces involved in aerodynamics: lift, thrust, drag, and weight. And each of the forces has an opposing force. So we're going to start with weight, or gravity. So the heavier an object is, the more force there is pulling it to the ground. And the more downwards force we have, the more lift we need to produce in order to rise in the air. So force of gravity is equal to the mass of your object times the acceleration due to gravity, which is equal to 9.81 meters per second squared. If you want to learn more about gravity and force, you can go look at our bridges video. So one cool thing about gravity is, you'll see here I have a little paper airplane. It's actually more like a bee. Bees are interesting because they shouldn't be able to fly. They're too heavy for their wing size, yet they are able to fly, just like this little guy. So the force that opposes gravity is lift, and lift is often created by wings. So the wings will push air down and keep the object in the air. So another way to show lift is, I have here a hovercraft. So all I've done is taken a CD and I've hot glued a pop top to it. So just like the top off a bottle of soap. And I filled the balloon with air. Oh, we have a question. How much does gravity affect us? Well, Rebecca, gravity affects us in the same way. So the heavier you are, the acceleration due to gravity is the same. So we all are affected by gravity in the same way, but just depending on your weight. So let's just show this hovercraft. So when I pop the top on our balloon, I'm creating a force that allows the hovercraft to glide around because it reduces the friction underneath. It produces just enough lift to counteract gravity. And now you can see the balloon is deflated. There's no air, there's no lift, and it's much harder to push around. You're very welcome. So that is lift. So our next force that we're going to talk about is drag. And drag is the force that opposes motion. And it's caused by friction or changes in air pressure. So you'll see in the picture beside me, it shows the drag of some different shapes of objects. So a sphere, the top part, has a medium amount of drag. The circular surface allows the air to glide around it, but it's quite big. It still creates a lot of drag in the back. You can see the swirly lines, and that is the drag, like pulling back on the object. An aerofoil, the shape of an airplane wing, for example, doesn't have a lot of drag. It's very sharp at the end, and it slices through the air. However, a square or a wall creates a lot of drag because it's pushing the air and it's catching a lot of it in the back, which is pulling it in the opposite direction. So we can actually use drag to our advantage, spoiler alert. So spoilers, or rather wings on cars like this Plymouth Superbird, can create drag and make the back of the car more heavy. So in a rear-wheel drive car, we can actually create more friction, which gives us more traction, which allows cars to get a quicker start. So in a race, for example. And also, another example of drag in real life is a golf ball. So have you ever wondered why golf balls have dimples in them? It's because it actually reduces the amount of drag on the ball. So you can see there's a large gap in the ball, behind the ball, for the smooth ball, and a much smaller gap for the dimpled ball. So that gap is where all the air that is circulating and all the turbulent air behind it. So with the smaller gap, there's less of that air and there's less drag on the ball. So thrust, our final force, is a force that moves an object in the direction of motion. And it's created by pulling air in and pushing air out. So all your engines, propellers, they work like the same way as a fan at home, and you've probably been using those a lot this summer. So yeah, so I have here with me, oh, we have a question. So if Rebecca and I go for a run, how much drag do we face, Aaron? Well, drag on people is pretty heavy because we're not very aerodynamic, really. We have big fronts that are just kind of like flat or wide, and we're not really cutting through the air. But having your hands in this motion actually creates less drag than having it in this position when you're running. So you could potentially go faster by having your hands straight out and running like that, rather than having them in fists. So great question, by the way. So back to our thrust. So here is a cool little paper airplane made by my friend Callie. And what's cool about this paper airplane is it's just a cylinder. But when we throw it, if we turn it when we throw it, add some rotational energy, we can make the air circulate inside, and it's going to have more thrust when we throw it. So let's see if I can throw it. That's pretty cool. And of course, I have a regular paper airplane. So if I throw that, the same thing. We reduce the drag by having it very aerodynamic, so the wings are very flat, pointed, so we're slicing through the air. Just like that. So just a quick one for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed that, and if there's any more questions, I'm going to stick around. Unfortunately, this will be one of our last lives, probably our last live stream, although we will try to do some more videos for you in the coming weeks. But unfortunately, our time here at X-Chem is coming to an end. So I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in every week and watching and supporting us. And yeah. Can you clear all the tables with those planes? I did not build most of those, I will admit. I'm not great at building paper airplanes. I probably can't do that. Can I try? Well, yeah, just let me, I'll go get it. I'll give it a shot. So here is the cylinder. That one was very good. Our plane's a little worse for wear. He took some damage. Oh, well, I told you not to expect much. But anyways, thanks everybody for tuning in, and that's going to be our video for today. Have a good one.